So hi everyone, and welcome to our first interview from our 2Inspire series. I'm Jeff Knapp. I'm the Vice President of Business Development at 2Checkout, and I'll be your host today. Real pleasure to have Brian Massey with me today. Hi Brian, it's a pleasure to have you.
Hi,
Thanks for joining us.
I am really glad to be here.
Excellent, excellent. So for the very few remaining folks who don't know, and I'm sure it is only a few, Brian is both the founder and the original conversion scientist at Conversion Sciences. He spends a great deal of his time both thinking, speaking and writing about conversion. And to that end, he's helped, dozens and dozens of businesses sort of transform their sites through a steady diet of visitor profiling, purposeful content, analytics, and testing. In addition, he's actually done work with us in the past on webinars, and judging by the registration numbers, folks are really excited to hear what he has to say. So we're real excited to have him. Brian, did I miss anything? If so, anything you want to
add? Nope. I have a book if anybody wants to get a nice foundation in conversion optimization. It's called Your Customer Creation Equation. It is available on Amazon, so I invite you to go and check that out.
Excellent. Thanks for the advice there. So a couple things are intriguing to me about this conversation before we jump right into it. One is not only do you spend a lot of time and energy helping businesses improve, but you're also a founder of a business and an entrepreneur yourself, right? So across both of those chasms a little bit. And if that's cool with you, why don't we go ahead and jump right in?
Okay.
So first one, real straightforward. Why don't you tell us a little bit about conversion sciences, and specifically what kind of made you get into the business, and get started, and why conversion optimization? What was your passion there?
Yeah, well, so I'm a computer scientist by training, thus the scientist moniker. I've earned it. But when I came out of college, I decided that I was going to go into sales. I had a few social skills, and so I spent the first few years in corporate sales, working with engineers to sell microchips for Texas Instruments. And so my job was to figure out what they needed from our catalog of 10,000 different microchips and processors. I rose to my highest level of incompetence in that role, decided to get back into software, moved to Austin, Texas, one of my favorite cities, because I live here, and started my own consulting business. In the days before broadband, we were delivering Google Maps like data across the dial-up networks. It was an interesting time. The dot-com bust took a few of our clients out, which took us out, and I spent the next 5 years working with small companies building their web backends, their online lead generation process. And I don't know what you do with someone who is computer scientist, marketing and sales entrepreneur, other than be a conversion scientist. It seemed like the most natural thing in the world. So I bought a lab coat, hung a shingle, and started Conversion Sciences. That was in 2007.
Cool. So what just out of curiosity, what was the landscape around conversion sciences back when you started, and how has it changed now in the last 11, 12 years?
Yeah, well, Brian and Jeffrey Eisenberg, they had developed a curriculum around that was called the Wizards of the Web, was the seminar that they did, and I took a several-day seminar with them, and they started to coin the terms conversion optimization, and this was really before we had some of these amazing data research and A/B testing tools. So it was in that seminar that I went, oh my gosh, this is my calling. This is technology plus creativity brought together with data. And that was really what was the genesis of the work I did. At the time, only the people in that seminar were really talking about this at any level. By then, Dell here in Austin had started to look at some of this stuff. So first thing I did was started talking about this on my blog, and it was pretty quick to gestate. Only 4 years later, I really felt like people were starting to get that there was this discipline called conversion optimization, and then it did have rules and guides and processes and vocabularies that we could use, even though no one's put up a website that they didn't want conversions. That's what we did. We wanted someone to do something from consume our content to buy our products. But it's a little ironic that it's only been in the last 10 years that we've really developed the vocabulary around it. And now the tools are incredible. So I think we are making that transition from the early adopters into the main market. But for anyone who is interested in optimizing your site, you are probably one of the first in your marketplace, and it is a huge competitive advantage. Go start doing this.
Well, that's great advice. Great advice. So speaking of tools, like what kind of tools do you use? And then, as the tools evolve, how do you evaluate new tools and to the degree you should apply them or test them out?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you that I could evaluate all the tools that I get pitched in a week. It's 4 or 5 a week, new tools. And I think this is golden. So in 2011, we wanted to understand how people were consuming different kinds of video. So we did a test comparing talking head video with slide video with the drawn animation video, and everything else was the same. The video length and the voiceover was all the same. So we did an eye tracking study, and we were using $7,500 worth of infrared cameras, $2,500 worth of software that still required me to go in and manually overlay things in a video editor. And it was weeks of work and people coming through the office and watching the videos live. Today, with a service called Sticky.ai, I can put up some creative, and they can have 100 people come and look at that and see where on the screen people's eyes are tracking. And we're seeing this across the entire spectrum. So we really do focus on A/B testing because it is the best data that we can collect.
Right.
But there's only so much traffic that websites have, so we have to be careful with what we A/B test. So we have these other tools that are maturing and becoming amazing: heat mapping tools, session recording tools, usability testing tools, where we can put creative in front of people and see if they're able to complete tasks accurately, or get some qualitative feedback on the designs we're doing. So we do a lot of that work on the front end to pick the things that we think are going to make the biggest difference on the website, and those get elevated to an A/B test. I can share with your listeners a one-page graphic that shows the tools we use currently at the different stages of design and evaluation. And I think it'd be really helpful for them to go and explore these tools. They're easy to use. They're getting more and more powerful every day, and they are so inexpensive. It blows my mind. It's a really exciting time.
No, that's great. Digging in on the discipline around testing a little bit. So I mean, you've helped some pretty big companies, and I'm sure some small companies, and some everywhere in between on this area. How do you work with a prospective client or a website and identify what should be tested, what's noise, what's the biggest bang for the buck? Walk me through the consultative process there.
Yeah. So first thing we need to do is make sure that the analytics is set up right. What we call our digital laboratory. So we go in and look for blind spots where analytics are missing certain parts of the website that are important to the funnel. We look for places where there are links away from the site and make sure that we're tracking to make sure that traffic isn't leaking away. We install some tools. We love the heat mapping and scroll mapping tools. We love the session recording tools. These really help us pinpoint problems on the site. If we want to install a tag manager to give us some more flexibility in how we're working with analytics, we'll do that. A/B testing tool, as I said, the best data that we can collect. So we will install all those things, and we'll calibrate it all and make sure that it's reporting correctly. So we've got a good digital lab. If you can imagine, it's equivalent to a chemistry lab or a pharmaceutical lab. You've got to have the right equipment or your scientists can't get the job done. Once we do that, we start consuming that data and we develop a long list of hypotheses. We do research to see which of those hypotheses is most likely going to increase the conversion rate or the revenue per visit, depending on the business. And then we have this amazing meeting where we take all of this information, and we are not shy about pulling screen captures or taking our audience right into these tools. All of us are wired to understand these tools. The reports are fairly intuitive, and of course we're there explaining what we're seeing. And so it's this really visceral introduction, number one, for our clients to their website and its major issues. They learn a lot about their clients through the way they're behaving on the site. And the insights that you would not get any other way are just fantastic. Any marketer that is thinking about trying these tools, I want you to imagine having this meeting with the rest of your team, or if you're in an agency with your audience, with your clients, because it is just boing, an eye-opening thing, even better than persona meetings and delivering marketing segmentation results, because you've got these visuals in there that are incredible. I should do a training just on how to do those meetings. The agencies would close a lot more, marketers would rise in the ranks faster. It's just an incredible experience.
No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So it sounds to me like, obviously, the data and the process is important, but also, your conversion scientists are also pretty important in that process. So talk to me a little bit about, your team of experts. Like, how do you go about, choosing people to become scientists? What skills and capabilities are you looking for? And then how do you, as a team and as an organization, keep evolving the discipline so that you're always on the cutting edge and offering the most value?
Yeah, so our best conversion scientists are just dumb. They're just idiots. And what I mean by that, not what you expected. What I mean by that is they come into every client as if they had never done this before. And this is really, really important. So everybody's talking about how we use buyer psychology to get more people to buy. And a lot of this borders on the line of manipulation and trickery. This is not what we want to be doing. The psychology you really need to worry about is your own. All marketers, all marketing managers, anybody involved with communications with a company is bringing their own biases, and this is really, really limiting them. They assume that everybody else thinks like they do, and so they're going to choose designs that they prefer. They're going to choose designs that they heard some feedback from one of their friends recently was best. They're going to choose UX experiences based on the last successful UX experience that they had, rather than, oh, how is this audience different? So the science that the conversion scientists put in place is specifically designed to get us out of the mix. So we, as open-mindedly as possible, we collect all of our ideas. Now, we have playbooks for all kinds of businesses, and we make sure that those hypotheses get moved onto the hypothesis list. But other than that, we want to come with an open mind. We have a very serious way of ranking hypotheses, specific things we look for in the research. And so at the end of the day, we're looking at the ranked list. The things at the top are the things that are most likely to move the needle, and then we can start formulating a strategy for how to test our way or alter our way through those sorts of things. That is the value that they bring. And our motto is don't think, know.
Mm-hmm.
And our other motto is do what you say when you're going to do it. So the conversion scientists are not only good at putting a process in place that keeps us from making uninformed decisions, but they get the job done. So they are shepherding the team all the way through. So we get this momentum where we're testing on a frequent basis because we want rapid growth. And if you test and wait a few months and test and wait a few months, you're not going to get the kind of momentum and consecutive insights that really drive growth in revenue or growth in leads.
So, thanks, Brian. So, you talk about besides the psychology of removing your own biases and coming in without any sort of bend, are there other psychology basics that are important to kind of apply to the process?
Yeah. So whenever you're designing copy or images, there are some basic things that you have to take into account, and you can take advantage of some of them as well. So relevance is very important. What do I see, or does the design offer something to me that is relevant, something expected? So a lot of times people will do designs which are really designed about building credibility and authority in those first few seconds that somebody comes to the site, but they'll build what they think is important instead of what the visitor expects. Mm-hmm. So that's what's different, and that's why sometimes very beautiful, awesome designs lose to ugly, quote unquote ugly, because the ugly design was closer to what was expected by the visitors. We like to test things like scarcity. So if there is a limited time on an offer, if there is a limited quantity, If you're on an e-commerce site and quantities can get close to zero, going ahead and communicating that in a bold way adds this scarcity. Sometimes we'll actually put things in the way of taking action, which adds an exclusivity to it and really can appeal to transactional buyers who are always looking for ways to game the system and find a way to get another 5%, 10% discount on. And so we give them a little bit of that gaming. One of my favorite psychological effects is something called liking. And Robert Cialdini talks about this in his book, Science of Influence. And what it is when somebody chooses you, they instantly think you're better. I mean, you have to be better because they chose you, right? It gets a little bit circular. But if you put social media icons, ask them to share on the thank you page after they've completed a task, a sign up or a purchase, or if you ask them one question, you're going to have high completion rates. And the question we love to ask on the receipt page is, what almost kept you from buying today? You will get a very high response rate, and you're going to get good information from someone who just finished going all the way through the process. So those are a few of our favorite psychological things. Anchoring on price, leading with the higher price before you introduce the lower price. It's classically done with the here's the price, cross it out, here's the real price. We like to play with some of those things. What we don't want to do is like artificially put a countdown timer on a product that doesn't actually expire, or an offer that doesn't expire. That becomes manipulative, and I don't think it's good for brands at all. The best brand experience is finding what you were looking for at the price you can afford. That's a great brand experience. And to that extent, conversion optimization is a branding exercise as well.
Sure. That's a really good insight. Thanks, Brian. So let's shift gears a little bit to another science discipline like the periodic table, for instance. And I know you like to reference AR or Argon, particularly in the context of abandonment. So talk to us a little bit about some of your clients who've kind of struggled with abandonment and some tips that you've given them, or some insights that might broadly apply.
Yeah. So technically speaking, abandonment is when somebody starts a checkout or a subscription or a registration process and doesn't finish that process. And we have great tools now that are allowing us to do form analysis, so we can see if there's something on a form that is a killer. Everyone struggles with abandonment, and there are really two kinds of abandonment. So we've got what we call good abandonment and bad abandonment. It's like your cholesterol, good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. Good abandonment, if you can imagine that, is somebody who wasn't going to buy, but they went into your checkout process to find out what the final price was, to just make sure you have stock, questions like that. They're adding you to their decision set, but they are not going to buy from anybody at this time. Bad abandonment is when they get surprised by what they see in the checkout process. So you ask them for information that they felt was too personal, or there's an extra charge that they hadn't expected. For instance, if you don't address shipping on an e-commerce site outside of the checkout process, you're going to have higher abandonment. And it's the wrong kind of abandonment. We want people going into the checkout process already confident that they're going to be able to finish that transaction and excited about the product they're getting at the price they're getting. Forms play a big role in this process. So we look for what we call killer fields. And there's two broad categories. One is an obvious killer. So if you ask for their social security number, they're probably not going to give that to you because they've been told not to. And no, you shouldn't be asking for that unless you're a government entity, I suppose. And other killer fields are like your mobile phone number. And if you do that without proper context for how you're going to use that, or proper permissions, it's going to be a killer. So deal killers, you'll find them. Any field that asks for qualifying information like their title, the size of the company, yearly revenues, time frame in which they're going to buy. If sales isn't using that, then it shouldn't be on the form. And what we find is that marketers say, like, this would be great information, but sales isn't really using it. So in general, you'll want to move those off. The second ones are where you communicate inadvertently. So in a lead generation situation, I see this all the time. How big is your company? It's a good qualifying question. And the drop down starts with 1 to 1,000 employees. And then the next one is like 1,000 to 2,000, 2,000 to 5,000, up to 10,000. What that communicates inadvertently is that you only do business with big companies. So somebody who has 250 employees is like, oh yeah, these guys, they don't want to do business with me. Somebody who has 500 employees, they're like, nah, this is an enterprise solution and I'm not an enterprise, when those would be amazing customers for you. So anytime you ask for somebody's area of what their role is in the organization, if your drop down doesn't include a number of those, if it's not on the list, I'm like, this isn't for me. These guys don't want to sell to somebody like me, so I'm gonna back out of this and abandon. So those are the biggest things that we look for. And then, the number of steps is a great thing to test, especially at 2Checkout. We've done a number of these kind of tests. Do we have a 3-step, 2-step, or 1-step checkout process? Is it different for when they're entering a trial versus when they're actually buying the product? We saw a 42% increase in conversions to purchase simply by removing one landing page from the process of people who had been trying one of the products that we've been working with one of your customers. So that's an amazing win. And so these are the sorts of things that we would recommend that you try on your site.
So when you think about a lot of businesses, particularly e-commerce businesses, are beginning to kind of shift their buying model or their selling model from the one-time purchase to maybe some more of an ongoing subscription or membership type of basis. How has your evaluation of the optimization or the relationship changed in the advice that you offer to merchants thinking about subscriptions versus sort of the one-time purchase?
Yeah. So there's 2 ways we can go about this, and we have e-commerce clients that are really focused on the long-term value of the client. And so what we want to do is we don't want to increase the number of purchases, but decrease the quality of those kinds of customers. And we will take the first purchase, but what we really want to be optimizing for is getting people into the process and having them have such a good experience that they continue to buy over and over and over again. So much of the time we will optimize for long-term value, LTV, or often sometimes called lifetime value. And what we want to do is allow the test data to bake for a period of time to see how repeat visits work. Or we can use proxy variables and see a month out, 2 months out, 3 months out, are we increasing or decreasing lifetime value as we find changes that improve at that moment, first time purchases, first time conversions. One of our e-commerce sites, though, they know that they know how to do this. So they know how to use email, they know how to use retargeting, they know how to use shopping ads to get people back. So while long-term value is what they're all about, from a conversion standpoint, all they need is more people. So they really optimize for conversion rate. Mm-hmm. So I think it really depends on how good you are at generating those follow-on sales, and churn rate is the other thing you can optimize for. So for those people that haven't nailed it yet, we can help them optimize to reduce churn rate, and that's a combination of great emails, great landing experiences, and being very educational. A good onboarding process for like an online service will oftentimes generate longer and longer subscriptions because people have been successful with the product.
Cool. Thanks. Can you maybe talk us through an example of like a really tough challenge that you guys faced? Is it related to conversion optimization and how you went about solving the problem, or maybe giving up and moving on? I don't know, but something that's really unique and interesting that you guys had to plug away at.
Well, so I think the toughest challenges are if you're optimizing a funnel that doesn't have a lot of transactions. We call it a low traffic strategy, but it's really about how many transactions you're getting. Some website may get thousands and thousands and thousands of visits a month, but the different funnels break off people, and so you've got hundreds of conversions in each of those funnels, and so optimizing any one of them takes a little bit longer. So we don't want to be running tests for 3 months to wait for it to come to fruition. And so though those are situations where you really have to steel your inner scientist. Be ready for this, because you're going to run 7 tests for every winner. You're going to have 6 inconclusive tests. Some of those might even reduce the conversion rate. But yeah, the reason is because in a low traffic situation or a lower transaction situation, you are looking for home runs, and you're not going to reach statistical significance. So you're looking for things that in 4 weeks or 2 weeks, you can see one of the ideas is just going for the fences. And those are rare. So that requires a great deal of patience on our part. It requires a great deal of patience on our client's part, and those are typically our biggest challenge. It does work though, and for those inconclusive tests, you can usually go in and find certain segments of the visitors that are reacting positively. So that tells you something about the visitors. And as our personalization tools start to get better and better, we're going to be able to actually target specific experiences at those subsegments that particularly liked an implementation. That breaks up the traffic even more, but that really, those are the most challenging ones for us.
So when you encounter a situation like that, do your scientists, coach, patience and discipline to hope that you get, a good result? Or I imagine the toughest challenge, right, to your point, is the people who are running a business like that are looking for the silver bullet or the home run, and may sort of lack some of the patience and discipline to get it done right.
Yeah, and I think this is happening less and less now. People are realizing they're investing in a process, but certainly early adopters for the last probably 5 years that we've been doing this have been coming in going, all right, there's probably something real easy and obvious here. You guys can find it, and then we'll be happy. We'll make more money. Thank you very much. And so there was this educational process as we roll out our hypothesis list, and there's everything from add ratings and reviews to your site, which is a huge task, to change the font that your product pages is using, make it bigger. They start to see some of those smaller ones. They're going like, wait a minute, what are we signing up here for? And the goal is to find out what really works for your audience. These days, people are signing up. They're like, all right, I know I'm committing to a process. It's going to be a 6-month process, probably go for several years because we're hoping it's going to be successful. And I think there's been a fundamental shift in the marketplace there.
Great. So shifting gears a little bit to some of your perspective, right? Do you have some role models or influential people that sort of you look to for inspiration or to challenge yourself on a daily basis?
Well, that's a great question. So my greatest inspiration, and I continue to go back to the material that they developed back in 2006, Jeffrey and Brian Eisenberg. They live here in Austin. I don't get to visit with them very much. I'm fortunate that I live in the conversion capital of the world, Austin, Texas. For whatever reason, we have some of the biggest conversion optimization agencies, a large number of them, and just a wealth of people who are practicing this. So on a monthly basis, we all get together and compare notes. I guess because we all work so hard to communicate the value of these practices and this discipline and these tools over the years, and there's plenty for everyone. We've become friends with all of our competitors, and most of them are here. So that's really where I get most of my inspiration, is being able to sit down and talk about what tests are working and not working. It's really, really important. We have an open office set up here because the cross-pollination of ideas is so important. Something that works for one e-commerce site should be on the hypothesis list for another site. And we daily are going to have these facepalm moments like, oh, that worked. I never thought that would work. Or, I'm so smart. Look, I predicted this. Those notions get pretty quickly squished. A/B testing is a humbling process. So these eureka moments around the office are the other thing that's most exciting for me, and we get to to take some of those and write about them on the website. So I like that. I love the oh my gosh, it's almost like working in a sports book, like in a Vegas sports book, where you've got all the screens on and all the sports going on, only it's people's tests and businesses all around. It's kind of interesting.
That's great. I guess it kind of keeps you challenged and always sort of looking at new ways of doing things. Huh?
Yeah, and sometimes what we're doing is we feel like we're placing bets. Like we have 3 good ideas here. Which one of these are we going to test? We're placing bets on that and making real money too.
I guess to that end, how important is the concept of fail fast when you're thinking about your tests or the money that you lay on those bets?
I mean, ultimately, that is what we are trying to do. Fail fast. So as we get more tools that help us with our research, we're using that to cross things off of the hypothesis list faster. We can only test so much with the traffic we've got for any one client, so there's a real barrier there. But we want to make sure that we are always in test, that we always have something else queued up, unless we're needing to pause to bake in some results or something like that. So fail fast is really, really important. And that doubles down our need for a scientific approach, because failing fast, we can very easily make snap decisions that we're either calling something a winner when it's not, or we're calling something a loser when it would have won. So we've really got to get our biases out of the way, because the faster you go, the more your brain wants to make decisions with the lizard brain, the limbic system of the brain, and that's what we're all about mitigating.
As you started your business and have built the business over time, what's some of the best advice you received from others that kind of helped you along the way?
Some of the best advice that gosh, there's so much that goes into it. I think there was a point I distinctly remember where it was realizing how important it was to get comfortable with inconclusive tests. I mean, it's probably the hardest thing that we deal with. I wish I could draw a specific amazing quote for you. Let me think about that a little bit more, and maybe we can cut that in
Sure.
a little bit later. Let's see what comes up. That'll start cooking now in my mind.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Do you have a favorite motto or expression that you like to throw out there that people associate with you?
My favorite motto is "Never pet a burning dog," which can have various meanings. What it means to me is don't do something that's obviously dumb. And while that may sound like terrible advice, we see it all the time. People making decisions. Well, we have data that shows, and they're like, yeah, but we're not going to do that. Okay, so you're going to walk away from 20% of your revenues. Yes, because I like this one better. That's petting a burning dog. The other thing is, the other interpretation of that is when a dog's on fire, he doesn't need to be pet, he needs to be put out. So we are often brought in while people are struggling because they've had a downturn in their advertising. And they're like, wait, keywords are getting too expensive, or we've run out of keywords, we can't grow this, can you guys come in and help us? And their tendency is always to keep investing in more and more traffic when they have a conversion rate sub 1%. Mm-hmm. They're just not getting their money back out of it. If they could increase their conversion rates, then they could afford to buy more keywords because they could bid more because their acquisition cost is lower. And so that's a situation where if we came in and said, oh yeah, we'll help you with your AdWords campaign, we'd be petting a burning dog. They really just need to put the fire out, and it's a conversion fire.
Yeah. I can assure you that is an expression I will use. I love it. So if you're talking to a merchant or someone who's running an online business, and you see them at the coffee shop or something, what are some typical basics to kind of get started for somebody who's totally confused and overwhelmed by all the options there? What would you say? Hey, look, crawl first, then walk. And here's what crawling looks like, just the kind of basic things.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell a story. If you want to edit this out, that's fine. But the first thing that I tell anyone is you are already wired to be a scientist. You've already got the wiring. You do not have to have a PhD in data science. You do not have to go to Google Analytics University, although I think you'll find it very interesting once you get the idea that you are already wired for this. And the story is my 14-year-old son was building his computer, his first computer. Now, the kids don't go to the mall anymore. They meet online. They put the headsets on, get Skype on, and they drop into League of Legends. I think that Fortnite is now the place where they're going and meeting. World of Warcraft, when he was younger, it was all about Minecraft. They drop into these worlds, and that's where this is their social world, and it's an amazing problem-solving space. So if he got this computer wrong, it was going to be a brick, and he's going to be stuck with it until he could cobble together another $1,000. At 14, he had pulled $1,000 together for this. He was meticulously speccing everything he wanted for this amazing gaming computer, down to the motherboard, which everything plugs into, so you can't get this wrong. He had two choices. One, both of them were the same price, and they both had the features he needed, but one was rated 5 stars and one was rated 4 stars. So if you're not a natural scientist, you go, well, 5 is better than 4, so I'll buy the 5-star motherboard. But even at 14, he knew to go and check how many reviews were driving those ratings. It turns out there were only 5 reviews driving the 5-star rating, and there were 250 driving the 4-star rating. So at that young age, and every one of the people listening here know, they're calculating sample size, which is what we're talking about, the number of reviews, making some assumptions about the population. If there's only 5 reviews, how many of these things could have been sold? Does it suck? Is it new? And you also are calculating the error range. So with a sample size of 5, this could be a 1-star motherboard. With a sample size of 250, might be a 3-star motherboard, might be a 5-star motherboard. None of us is thinking these terms. None of us is thinking, confidence levels, sample sizes, population sizes. We're already wired for it. So I want marketers first to embrace that, and then go into Google Analytics and or whatever analytics package you have, and click through the reports, and just for the only reason is to understand what kind of questions you can answer in analytics. And then when you're designing and you're saying, well, I wonder how this page is performing, you know how to go and see what the exit percentage is on that page, or you can get an idea of where people are going from that particular page to start to diagnose it. Once you get comfortable with that, you're going to find heat maps reports very easy to use, scroll maps very easy to use. But that first insight of I am capable of using data in the service of my prospects and my customers is key. And so I usually have them start there rather than any particular best practice, because there are no best practices.
Yeah, that's great advice. Stepping back away from the conversion for a second and going back to your entrepreneur experience, like there are thousands of online businesses starting up every day. What advice would you give to, an entrepreneur out there who's just getting started?
Yeah. I actually do a lot of work with entrepreneurs. I am a mentor at the Founders Institute. I'm a teacher at Tech Ranch here in Austin, which has a program called Venture Forth that allows people to dive into their first businesses. And you are going to, so you mentioned earlier, fail fast. No entrepreneur is going to be surprised by fail fast, but fail cheap is also what I prefer. So most entrepreneurs have heard of the concept of a MVT, a minimum viable MVP, a minimal viable product. I take that a step back and say you should be starting with an MVNP, a maximum viable non-product. You should be putting up landing pages that sell your product, that sell your service, and invite the visitor to buy, and see how many people do that. Do that very inexpensively. You can do that by buying traffic. You can do that if you have an existing mailing list, if a partner will allow you to mail to that mailing list. But you need to be using these tools, because underneath that is running Google Analytics, which is telling you what your conversion rates are and how many people are bouncing, etc. You can be running your heat map tools under that, so you can see how people are interacting. Maybe there's something structural wrong with the page. It's not your idea. It's not the way you're presenting it. There's something structural wrong with the page. And so you can learn really quickly from an MVNP before you even go and invest the $20,000 to $50,000 in the MVP, which if that works, then you can build it out and get funding. So if you are running a business and you are counting on the web, you are going to have to become good at data. And as I said, you're already there. You just have to get up the learning curve on some of these tools. Step in with baby steps.
So beyond your book, which I'll give you an opportunity to talk about again here in a second, are there other books or resources or sources that you'd recommend either entrepreneurs or folks looking to optimize their website, kind of go check out to stay relevant?
Yeah, so my book, if you are interested in the book that really catalyzed and I continue to use especially for things like quickly doing personas is Jeffrey and Brian Eisenberg's book, Waiting for Your Cat to Bark. So we got a lot of cats and dogs going on here today. I would recommend starting there. For landing pages, Tim Ash has a great book called Landing Page Optimization, which really got me up several learning curves when we started testing. Online training, there is, got to talk about my competitors, but that's what we do. Right here in Austin is the home of the Conversion XL Institute, and it is the best training on analytics, conversion optimization. Pepli has really put together a fantastic resource there, so go and check that out. Those would be the starting places for me. And I'm kind of a learner by doing, so do anything that builds your creativity and curiosity. Because what you're going to find is that when you know how to use this data, it becomes a safety net. Mm-hmm. And you get to start taking creative risks again because you can find an inexpensive way to test your ideas. So you don't have to be, we're going to spend $100,000 on this campaign. I can't take any chances because what if we blow that money and I make the wrong choice? Mm-hmm. Now you know how to go and figure out if a crazy idea is really going to knock it out of the park or if it probably wasn't a good idea. So you get to get a little more crazy. So anything that builds your creativity, anything that fires your curiosity, go to those places. If you like to draw, you should do more of that. If you like to do music, you should do more of that. Nonfiction books, read some of those, because especially a great writer, because how we construct words is so important to conversion optimization. Copy is so important. So pick up Tom Robbins, who is just has an amazing way with words and is funny as hell. That's what you need to do. You've got to be creative to be a scientist. We're the most creative people on the planet, I promise you.
Excellent. Hey, remind our listeners or viewers one more time the title of your book and where to go find it.
Yeah, so on Amazon, Your Customer Creation Equation, subtitle, Unexpected Website Formulas of the Conversion Scientist.
Excellent. Thanks, Brian. I really appreciate the talk. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to, we are a teaching organization. We present all over the world, and you'll find amazing information on our blog at conversionsciences.com. Great.
Well, I really thank you for your time. I certainly enjoyed it, and I know our attendees will enjoy the webinar as well. And you have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time on our 2Inspire series.